Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 256 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host. He is Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way on the Twitters as well, for as long as, this site remains free, right? Because I'm not paying for Twitter, guys. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to find somewhere else to get the takes off. It's not going to be paid on Twitter, unfortunately. But I'm sure we'll survive it. We'll survive it just fine. But before we get into the takes, Adnan, how are we doing tonight?
I'm fucking fantastic. I mean, the team is 2-0. Like, let's fucking go. Like,
Yeah.
Everything's better. Like, everything's good right now. Shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's
nothing else. It doesn't even matter that I'm a Nick Chubb fantasy owner, and
Yeah.
RIP.
I wasn't gonna bring that up. I was gonna, yeah.
Yeah, what we do wish Nick Chubb a very fast recovery, and we hope to see him back in the NFL next season. That was very bad, but shit. I mean, we're 2-0, bro. Like we're doing this. What we are, you talk about it all off season. Like we're talking about it. We talked about our expectations all off season, and you can talk ad nauseum about, all right, the Falcons need to come out. They need to win the first two games. You're playing the first two games at home. And, we have our predictions. And, I think I did successfully predict the first two games in our game-by-game series. I thought we would start 2-0. But it's different, talking about it and, visualizing it versus it actually happening. Like, when it actually happens, it's just it's a different type of feeling. This is... I haven't felt this good about the Falcons since 2016. Like, genuinely. Even that 2017 season, I couldn't enjoy any of it because, you were coming off that Super Bowl blunder. But, this is the most enjoyable experience as a fan that I've had in many, many years.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right about that. I mean, it's been particularly brutal for you because you joined the site in 2018? Yeah. So it was like you didn't even, not only did you not get 2016, you also didn't get 2017. And you come in right when things really just started to go downhill. And honestly, 2018 is one of those years that could have maybe been something if not for historic injuries that the Falcons went through that year. I think they lost the entire secondary in the first 2 weeks. So it was absolutely brutal that season got derailed, and who knows if they would have been really good, but they definitely were going to be better than that abomination of a season there. And it's ever since then, it's been just so miserable top to bottom.
Literally just downhill.
Yeah, it's just been getting worse and worse, and they kept Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff way too long. They delayed this, and this was something that I wrote, to Pride of Detroit, our Lions site. We do the 5 questions back and forth, and they were asking, how's the rebuild going? And it's the rebuild's going good. It's just this team deciding to keep Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff that extra year in 2020, it set this team back 2 years. Like that final year of just blunders in free agency and bad contracts that Dimitroff handed out set this team back 2 years in terms of that's how long it took them to dig out from those mistakes. And Dimitroff had some good picks that year, but I mean, it's yeah.
My favorite part is we called that. That's exactly what we said would happen. On this show weekly, we were talking about, you have to move on from these guys. You can't just give them another year. Of course they're going to make short-sighted moves. We were talking about it in that moment as it was happening. We were saying, all right, this is a very bad idea. And, apparently Arthur Blank's the only one that didn't get that memo, and he's the only one that matters. But yeah, I mean, I called for Dan Quinn to get fired. I remember on that post-game show after we lost to the Titans.
Yeah.
In 2018.
I
The game against Mariota and the Titans, and I remember going on a rant about this isn't working out. Now's the time to pull the trigger, and they did pull the trigger, but 2 years later, and it was 2 years too late. And I mean, we suffered the ramifications of it for an extra 2 years, and we're just now getting our heads above water.
Yeah, but they did the right things. They went out and they methodically and slowly did the right things. They didn't rush. They did it the hard way, honestly. Like, that you could have done it the way the Saints have been doing things, and we'll see how this holds up over the course of the season. Right now, the Saints are 2-0, the Falcons are 2-0. But I think we'll see over the course of this season that the Saints are going to fall off, and I think the Falcons are going to continue to get better. Now, obviously, I'm biased, but I think there's like actual reasons for that, and one of those things is that the Saints' depth is non-existent. That team has continued to bleed talent every single year. The starters there are still good. Like, I mean, I think they do have some good starters on defense, and I think their receiving core is good, obviously. But you can see it. They've given out a lot of bad contracts on the offensive line. That offensive line is no longer a strength for them. They've paid Derek Carr a ton of money to not be an upgrade over Andy Dalton. I mean, like, I think Saints fans were expecting this miraculous, we have a franchise quarterback now, not really realizing that, like, actually Andy Dalton wasn't the problem last year. It was the team had no depth. Yeah. Don't tell them that. Yeah.
They're pretending like Derek Carr is so good.
Yeah. Derek Carr was not good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a Saints thing to do. They're gassing up their own players, and then they get shocked when they win like 8-9 games. I don't even think they'll win that many this year, honestly. But I mean, well,
I think they'll win like 7 or 8. Yeah, just because they're not that bad. They're really not that bad.
I think they'll be at like 8-9 this season. They have a very easy schedule. But yeah, I mean, this team did do it the right way, and they got very lucky that the Browns bailed them out from that Deshaun Watson fiasco.
Yeah,
because that, like, can you imagine if the Falcons?
Oh God, I don't even want to entertain that. None. I don't even want to pretend that was what actually ended up happening, because I am so far out on that chain of events coming to fruition. And it looks like the Browns have made a colossal mistake, obviously, with that.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money for a quarterback that has been very, very, very bad. Like, not even mediocre. Like, he's been very bad. Like, genuinely, like, he looked terrible on Monday night. I think that offense is going to take a bit of a nosedive with Nick Chubb gone now.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, that would have hamstrung this team like completely. Like, and we're not even getting into the PR, like, absolute PR nightmare that would have brought as well. But all's well that ends well for the Falcons. They did end up. I'm still not saying that they have their franchise quarterback, but I mean, I would definitely much rather have Desmond Ridder on what, $600,000?
Yeah, $1.1 million or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it that much? Like,
I think it is. Yeah. I mean, well, like,
minuscule amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'd rather have that over Deshaun at what, 62?
Yeah, like, and it's only getting worse. It's getting worse year by year too. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the situations in the NFC South, and it's like the Bucs and the Falcons and the Panthers. Even the Bucs with Baker Mayfield seem like it's a little bit promising, maybe, but I mean, I don't believe it. Like, we've seen Baker Mayfield have a few good games many times, and no one's, and that's why I think he's such a good backup, because I think Baker Mayfield can be a good quarterback a few games a year, but every single time it comes back to what he does best, which is that he's a risk taker, and he doesn't really have a good handle on how to not take risks. And with that Bucs team, it's like, well, they've also gotten to play probably the 2 worst defenses in the NFL over the first 2 weeks with the Vikings and the Bears. So, like, I don't believe that's going to hold up for them, certainly. But, I mean, certainly you're not paying Baker Mayfield very much money, so you're not upset there. Early returns,
Baker's looked fine. Mike Evans looks really good. I'm standing Rachaad White this year because I have him in fantasy football, but he's
been getting like 10 plus. Considering where you drafted him, it's probably about what I expected. Yeah,
I mean, he's okay. Like, he's an okay player. Like, that defense has some playmakers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Bucs are not a team that I'm like that offensive line is a plaguing issue. Like, I'm not really here. I'm not worried about the Bucs like super long term. I did pick the Falcons to lose in Tampa this season, even before like they started being successful. But I don't know. I think it will come down to the Falcons and the Saints, and I think the Falcons will have the horses to win that battle. And I genuinely think that this team will win there is nothing for me to go off of my 10-win prediction.
Yeah.
Like I have stuck like since when did we do that last Dead Zone show where we went game by game? It was in July. Like since July, all you, me, and Eric all said 10-7, and I've held completely firm to that through training camp, through preseason. I'm sure you have as well. And I mean, 2 games in, there is nothing to suggest to me that this team is going to win less than 10 games at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in fact, like, you know, we'll get to it obviously with this week where it's like, you know, the Falcons have started 2-0. Like, we're obviously surprised because, like, on paper, I think we both agree that they should. I think that the Packers actually have been better. Like, we're better than people expected to start the year. At least certainly I did. I thought Jordan Love was not going to work out there. And I think Jordan Love honestly has been probably the bright spot on that team, and that he's
been good. He's been
fine.
Like,
yeah, like he has not made mistakes. I mean, he's played
6 touchdowns.
Well. Yeah,
0 picks. Like,
yeah,
you know,
not a high volume passing game, but you know, it's hey. Well,
I mean,
they've thrown a lot of passes.
Really have one of those either. Like
no, so I don't blame him. Yeah,
but he should have thrown a pick. He should have thrown a pick to AJ Terrell this past week. Desmond Ridder, in fairness, should have thrown 3.
Yep.
Like he did throw 1. There was some dropped there were some bad drops like in the secondary in this game on both sides. And I mean, look, it wasn't, and I mean, I think this is a good way to transition into the pass game. It wasn't pretty. The first 3 quarters were really bad, actually. Like, this team was down 12 going into the fourth quarter. The pass rush absolutely was non-existent. That's an issue. That's an underlying issue for this team moving forward. And I mean, I talked about how in last week's show on Wednesday, how, you know, the Packers pass blocking is really good. I didn't think that the Falcons would be able to generate much pressure unless they blitzed, but it was still very troubling to me seeing that the team just got no pressure like throughout the game. They had that early sack from Caden Ellis, and I think other than that, they had a couple tackles for loss. Like Ellis had one, Nate Landman had one. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, Jordan Love's pocket was just so clean throughout the entire game, and the Falcons' pass rush did even worse than I expected it to. Yeah. But you know, it's the defense did lock in a little bit in that fourth quarter, and they got some help from Jordan Love. Just I don't know what happened when he tripped on himself and had that false start in the fourth quarter. I've never seen that happen before in my life. I don't know what that miscommunication was from. But I mean, I'm grateful for it because I'm pretty sure the Packers would have converted that. It was like 4th and inches. I think they were getting ready for a QB sneak there. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it wasn't perfect. It was not perfect by any means. There are some very bad underlying issues from those first 3 quarters, but those issues are always so much easier to mitigate when you come away with a win. Like, this team is by no means a finished product, but this team is at 2-0. I don't give a fuck who was missing for the Packers. It's the NFL. Like, it happened. Injuries happen to everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to go out there and say, oh, here's an asterisk win for the Falcons because, you know, this person was out. Like, I remember Mike Tirico saying that on Thursday after that Lions win. It's like, oh, this is a bit of an asterisk win for the Lions because Travis Kelce was out. Like, no, it's not. Like, the record is the record. The tiebreak is the tiebreak. At the end of the season, if the Falcons are tied with the Packers, this game is going to be looked at. This game, incredibly important. The Falcons are now 2-0 in NFC play. And, I mean, you could not have asked for a better start. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium was absolutely rocking. Falcons fans have showed out throughout the first 2 weeks. It's going to be absolutely rocking moving forward. You know it's going to be so hyped for week 5 against the Texans, especially if you can win one of these next 2 games. Like, this city is completely bought in. This city is completely behind this team. And we saw it during training camp, just how excited this fan base was for these Falcons. Yeah. And it's about damn time that this team starts rewarding some of that excitement. Yeah. It's about damn time that this team starts rewarding some of this investment from this fan base which has been fiercely loyal, which has continued to show up, show out, and which has continued to, let's be honest, get embarrassed by this team year in and year out. And I mean, it's about time that they get something positive for once.
Yeah. No, it's a nice thing to have a winning record. It's been so long since we've even been able to say that. It's a nice thing to win week 1 and not go into week 2, because it's real, like the Owen tombstone, which I think Justice Mosqueda coined that term that everyone started to use, right? Like for the last 5 years, we've been like, well, this team is one game away from playoff elimination, essentially. Not that it, and it's never like 100%, but one team has made the playoffs after starting 0-2 in the 17-game era, just one. And it's nice that the Falcons don't have to worry about any of those like stats. Like going 2-0, it protects you like for a while from those historical stats sort of weighing you down and being like, well, you're probably not gonna make the playoffs at this point. And there's always exceptions, but like it's just nice to have that cushion to get that 2-0 start. And honestly, like getting the win over the Panthers is big because it's a division game. Now I don't think we have much to fear from the Panthers. That offense looks completely non-functional. Like, it's just not very good. That defense is absolutely legit though. Like, and I just feel so bad for them losing all those pieces because I think the Panthers defense is absolutely legit. I think Ejiro Evero is a really good coordinator. And like, they were dominating the Saints. If the Panthers offense could have done anything in that game, they would have probably won, but they couldn't. And now Bryce Young is hurt apparently. So, it's just, man, so the Panthers are probably going to be bottom feeders this year as a result of that offense just being, yeah.
And the worst part, they are in the worst possible position because they do not own their first round pick. That goes to the Bears in that Bryce Young trade. And yeah, I saw someone like put out a scenario. I don't know if this is this is very premature, but can you imagine if the Bears end up getting the top 2 picks in the draft this year? Can you imagine just pairing up Caleb Williams with Marvin Harrison Jr. like over there in Chicago? Like, man, that would be something. But I mean, that's still a lot of football to be played. Yeah. But man, the Bears are a fucking dumpster fire.
Oh yeah, right no, and just everything coming out today with their defensive coordinator as well. Like, that team is in really bad shape.
It feels good. It feels good being on the sidelines for once. Like it's not a dumpster fire.
We're not involved. Yes. Yeah.
We're just like casually like, it's that meme, the whole like, well, what are they doing over there? Like, it's like, we don't have to worry
Please
about
disperse.
Like,
yes.
Our house is clean. Like our house is set. We can worry about the chaos and the drama over there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we don't have to be like, oh wow, we're at the center of attention. In a bad way anymore, because the Falcons are a center of attention in a good way. I think for those of you that watch listen to Around the NFL, probably the most popular NFL podcast, I think they're very close to making it. For those of you that follow that podcast, every year the Around the NFL podcast, they pick a team to make their like official team of the podcast. And they're very close to picking the Falcons, I think, as their official team. Now, the bad news is most of the teams they pick as their official team end up going down in flames. They picked the Lions last year, for example, and that obviously didn't work out as well as Lions fans hoped. But if two of the 3 guys on that show really like the Falcons. They think they're spicy, they're interesting, and they never pick they're never going to pick the Chiefs or the 40. They're not going to pick these like high profile Eagles, Cowboys. They're never going to do anything like that. They always want that sort of plucky underdog, surprising team. So it's cool for me as someone who really enjoys that podcast to see that there's a lot of excitement around this team because it is an interesting sort of spicy team. And now they're actually winning too. It's not just like, oh, this team is interesting, but they're 7-10 and they're just not really going to be doing much. So that I'm excited to see how this progresses through the rest of the season. I know we had a question early in the show about what I was drinking tonight. Derek Hughes. So Sweetwater Brewing sent me a nice care package. I actually they sent me a pint glass. I already used that. So I'm using Firemaker's pint glass tonight, which my camera is not going to show you apparently. There you go. And Firemaker, shout out to them in Atlanta as well. Another great Atlanta brewery. Sweetwater sent me a sweet care package with a bunch of beer. So I'm drinking their, I think it's their like Tropical Gummies Imperial IPA, which is extremely strong. So I'm going to be sipping this one throughout the show so that we have coherent takes by the end of it. But yeah, shout out to those guys for both hosting our live show. Probably going to be hosting the live show next year as well. And for sending me the free beer and swag and all that cool stuff. Appreciate that.
I'm drinking a glass of milk.
Yeah, is it iced milk? Is it room temperature? Is it warm milk?
It's cold. It's nice cold whole
chilled
milk.
Yeah.
Chilled.
Whole milk.
Chilled,
okay.
Whole milk. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. we're doing that out here.
Okay, we got it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't care for your judgments. I am a milk drinker.
Hey.
No, not you. I'm talking about the general public.
Oh, okay.
Like, I know there's people in the public who are like, oh, gross. I don't care. Regular milk, chocolate milk. I'm not a big strawberry milk guy, but I will definitely drink a nice tall glass of regular ass milk.
Yes, I think there's like a certain temperature that milk is really good at, but if it gets like any hotter than that, like if it gets any warmer, it becomes disgusting to me. But if it's like this nice chilled temperature, then I think the milk is good. But you have to drink it quickly because once it warms up, it's just not as good. It just ruins it for me. So we got Solaire with the $2 saying, yeah, guys, we're winning and we're doing great. But what about the draft takes? Okay, I miss having these draft takes when we start the month of October. So when do you think we're going to get those draft takes this year? Too early, I know. Yeah.
When we're going to get those draft takes this year? January, February. When the appropriate time to actually be talking about the draft and prospects. I hated talking about prospects in October.
Yeah, that's just too early.
You're waiting months and months for the season, and then the team comes out, they're a dumpster fire, and now you're pretty much waiting a whole year for the next season just so you can reset.
On to next year already. No, I honestly, Solera, we're probably, December more likely than not, as long as they're in December, I'll probably just start doing mock drafts because that's a normal time to start doing them because okay, we've actually seen almost all of the college football season. We know who the top prospects are. Now we can actually make draft boards that are based on something real, and we could start talking about, we know sort of what the team needs are and stuff like that. So I think the team is still going to be in the mix in December, but I may do a mock draft in December just for fun. And it'll be cool to actually have a mock draft where we're not picking in the top 5. It's fun to pick in the top 5, in terms of mock drafts and stuff, but there's a lot more variability in the mock when you get into the later parts of round 1, because you can't just pick the top guys anymore. You have to start doing those deep cuts and figuring out, who's going to go there. So I think it'll be a nice change if this team is indeed picking more in the 20s, 30s even perhaps, right? No, probably not the 30s if we're being honest, but late 20s, I think late 20s is in play. Certainly. So yeah,
late 20s will be an NFC championship game or, a very
divisional
deep playoff.
Maybe. I think they could win the first round depending on who they go up against, but it really depends. It
does depend. Again, this is way too early, but also another thing is it'll be huge for the Falcons. And again, I have already put the disclaimer out. It's too early. Don't come at my throat saying, "Oh, it's week 2. Why are you talking about the playoffs?" Yeah. It'll be huge for this team to not be in that 4th seed if they do win that division. And that's why some of these games are really important, because you possibly have a chance to win that tiebreaker over the NFC North champion. If the Packers win the North and you win the South, you have the tiebreaker over them. Mm-hmm. If you beat the Lions this weekend, they win the North, you win the South, you have the tiebreaker over them. I'm not worried about the Bears. The Bears are not winning that division. The Vikings, the Vikings
maybe. That defense is so bad.
Team. Yeah, the defense is bad, but they have Kirk Cousins is a baller. They just traded for Cam Akers.
They could just outscore people any given week. They can, but they haven't done it yet. But they could. There's a chance.
And the Falcons will play them later on in the season. I'm sure they'll rush for over 200 yards in that game, but. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But basically, these games are really important, even early on in the season, especially against other NFC teams, because this is what's going to be looked at the very end of the season. And if you are in that 3 seed, it means that you're not having to go up against the Cowboys or Eagles, because I personally think the Cowboys or Eagles would, at this point, probably slaughter this team. I'm sorry. Those defenses
definitely the Cowboys.
Absolutely. Yeah, those defenses are absolutely legit. Like, those defenses will be able to slow down the run. They will absolutely destroy Atlanta's passing game, and those offenses are also very good.
Yeah.
But let's say if you are in that 3 seed, now you're facing one of the other wild card teams. Like, now you're possibly facing someone like, maybe a Seattle. I'm not as worried about Seattle at home. We have a lot of experience beating the Seahawks at home in the playoffs. Someone like Seattle, maybe not LA, definitely not Arizona.
Like, maybe if the Giants rebound. Maybe Washington, I think. Yep, Washington definitely.
Maybe even one of
Saints. Maybe, it would be great to beat the Saints in the playoffs. I would love that.
But I mean, basically, like, you see the drop off between Cowboys, Eagles, who both of whom are top 3 teams in the NFC, along with the Niners, and Washington. New Orleans, Seattle, like one of these teams, Minnesota, maybe.
It's really just that NFC East team you want to avoid, honestly, who's probably going to be the top wild card. So as long as you're not the 4th seed, you'll probably be okay.
But if you keep winning and you have a really light schedule this season, if you win, you won't worry about that. Like,
look at the Vikings. That team was not even that good, and they won 13 games last year. Like, they had a negative point differential.
In fairness, that was the biggest single season anomaly in NFL history.
11-0 in one-score games.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That team
and negative point differential.
Games.
Yes.
That team won 4 more games than they should have, like, statistically.
Oh, at least. At least.
But this is just, this team has an opportunity, and I think 10 wins will probably get you that 3 seed this year. Like, honestly, like, some of these other divisions, like, I don't know. I don't know if the winner of the NFC West is going to win 10 games.
I don't know. It really depends. I mean, it's a tough division.
It's possible.
I think the 49ers, will, for sure. But
it's so. I no, sorry. Paul, I forgot about the Niners. The Niners are winning like 12, 13 games.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking about. There's the NFC South, NFC North winner could, like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you have, the NFC East, which is also, so it's going to come down to between you and the NFC North winner probably.
Yeah.
I got tangled up there in my reasoning and my thought process. But again, that goes back to, it'll be really beneficial if you beat all the NFC North teams.
Well, because
you have the overall one.
Right, because I think the favorite to win the NFC North is the Detroit Lions, who the Falcons played this week. So if the Falcons, again, for much the same thing as Green Bay, if the Falcons were to win against the Lions this week, they would also have that head-to-head tiebreaker. And I think in the NFC North, that winner is likely to have 10 or 11 wins. So getting that tiebreaker over that winner would also potentially be a ticket to a better slot. And like, again, this is all super premature. It's just sort of,
But it's also nice.
We haven't really had a chance to talk about this like in a serious way in 5 years. So like, give us we have to enjoy this while we can. Okay, like, just in case things go terribly wrong, this is the only time we might get.
I was gonna say it's really nice to, like, 2 weeks in to be talking about playoff scenarios. Who could you possibly face? Versus in years past, 2 weeks in, it's like, all right, we better fucking win this weekend, or
or we're done.
The draft takes.
Yeah, and like, to their credit, last year you go back and look, and it was like, every time it seemed like they were like done, they would just like win 2 games and then like be back at 500. And they did that like 4 times. And then they lost like 3 games in a row, and then it was over. But, it was interesting that they just like refused to quit. Like, I did appreciate that about them. It was like, every time I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
But it's one of those things where this year, if you're 2-2, like, going into the season, if someone told you you're going to be 2-2 after the first month, I would have signed up for that. Like, looking at the schedule, I would have signed, because you see, the second month of the season is a lot lighter. It's a lot lighter. It's lot
really
easier.
The Commanders. Yeah, it looks like the hardest one. Yeah,
it is the Command. Although, like, the Bucks and the Titans will be coming off their bye week, which I'm still not underrating.
Right,
you have to go to Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay isn't really as scary as Detroit or Jacksonville, even though it is a division game. Houston should be a layup. Even though I really like what CJ Stroud is doing.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're just not as talented. Like, but that team, I think, is on the upswing now that they I mean, they can't fire Demico Ryans after 1 year, right? Theoretically, like
no, I mean they look pretty solid.
Oh yeah, no, like it's just that ownership just seems like, well, we're just gonna fire you and we're gonna fire you, and like Demico Ryans is too much of an icon. They can't possibly fire him after 1 year. So hopefully that'll help them in a big way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's nice to be talking about this, and it's nice to have that cushion, because even if you win these next 2 games, I'm not panicking in the least bit. I'm saying, we're right where we thought we would be.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if we win one of these next 2 games at 3-1, at that point, then it's like, all right, we're gonna make some noise. Like,
Yeah.
So something's happening, and if this team goes 3-0, like you will see a lot of recognition. And we knew the national media would recognize eventually, because we were talking about all of the stuff that they're now mentioning back in early August.
Yeah.
We knew this team would be a lot better. We knew they would be pretty good. And I mean, that fourth quarter, I just want to talk about that fourth quarter for a little bit.
No, we should.
It was going into that fourth quarter to be down by 12. And it felt like a quarter of redemption almost.
Yeah.
Like it was 3 different prongs, 3 different redeeming prongs. Let's say we already mentioned the defense. The defense looked pretty awful in the first 3 quarters. There was that touchdown for, I think, Wilkes or what Wicks.
Did he actually score a touchdown?
He did score a touchdown, and I think it was that touchdown where was it Trey Flowers just like sort of lost him, and it was and Richie Grant took like a really bad angle. He scores, and it was like one of those where you're like, are you fucking kidding? Like, I've seen this story from this defense year in and year out. And I mean, it was just really bad. The defense was just really bad. Outside of AJ Terrell was a menace, like in that game. Other than the drop pick,
he had that the first play of the game. He like grabbed, and then it was lights out after that. Absolutely lights out.
He had that touchdown saving, like, amazing, like, pass back down. Like,
and it looks so casual. It looks so casual. He was just like, no.
Yeah, like when I first saw it, I was like, did he drop that? But then you see the slow-mo replay, and AJ Terrell just like got his hand in there perfectly. That was on 3rd down. That saved 4 points.
Yeah.
Like, AJ Terrell's a beast. David Onyemata. What a signing. Like, David Onyemata like has been amazing. Grady Jarrett is a steady metronome that keeps ticking. And that fourth quarter, I don't think the defense gave up a first down in that fourth quarter.
No, they didn't give up anything. They gave up like 10 total yards in the entire quarter.
Yeah, like they just absolutely clamped down, and that defense gave the offense a chance.
Yeah.
The other prong that I want to highlight is Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith and his decision making, because I was losing my mind when it was 0-0 and the Falcons were inside the 3. And they decided to pass the ball, and they got away with it. They got the pass interference first down, 1st and goal from the 1, and they passed the ball 2 out of the next 3 times.
Yeah,
like you need to pound the rock every.
If you get to the 1, like, this is who we are. Okay, like, don't fight it. Don't try to pretend that we're anything else. We are who we are. Okay, they are who we thought we were.
I don't give a fuck if they know what's coming. Like,
nobody is stuffing them 4 times. Nobody is stuffing them 4 times.
Go out there in I formation, even though it is analytically smarter to spread everything out a little bit. I don't care. Like, go out there in whatever formation you want and just pound that shit. Like, pound the rock.
No one is stopping them 4 times.
Genuinely,
no one is.
Put Tyler Algier in there. Put Bijan in there. Put Cordero Patterson in there.
All 3
there this week, But
do the wing T.
Forward. Put Patterson in there.
Yeah,
and just go, like, just run it. Who are you trying to outsmart here?
Yeah,
like
it was just too.
It made me lose my mind that he was just trying to. He was trying to get too fancy. He was trying to get too cute, and this is what offensive coaches always do. Like, just do what's working. They are not going to stop you 3 different times. The Falcons come away with a field goal, and you just sort of had a bitter taste in your mouth.
Yeah, you knew that could be absolutely crucial to the outcome later, and it almost was.
It almost was, but then later on, Arthur Smith just comes out and he just he called some gutsy ass plays on fourth down in that fourth quarter. And throughout the entire game, analytically, I saw a stat that all 10 of his decisions on fourth down were the correct analytical assessment. All 10 of them, 5 punts and 5 times going for it on fourth down. Even though he didn't get it every single time, one of them should have been a pick six by Jair Alexander.
Right.
It's still nice. It's still nice to know that you are listening to the math. You are looking at the math a little bit. And I mean, Arthur Smith is savvy enough to know about the analytics. But my God, that last fourth down call on that Bijan Robinson pass.
Just the infamous meme now. Yeah.
That took some balls. Took some fucking ball because
I was like, oh yeah, I'm a coward. Like I think I'm aggressive until I got there. I was like, oh yeah, I wouldn't go for this. Like I would kick it. Like, and he did. He went for it. Yeah.
I'm with you. And analytically, like you had it raised your chances of winning by 6%. I don't care. Like in that moment, when we got to that moment, it's 4th and inches. I was saying kick it. And like even the benefit of hindsight, I'm looking back, like I'm so scared just thinking about that.
That was a tense.
That took some balls. Like genuinely, I was thinking to myself, like I would kick this ball right here. And yeah, Green Bay just needs a field goal. I get it. You're only inches away, but if you don't get that, you lose the game. Like if you don't get the game's over.
Straight up. Yeah.
You're just straight done. And then I like the play call. Like even though like, you know, in a vacuum, it's not smart to toss the ball out to a running back.
And we've maligned him for that in previous years of that running that toss play on short down. Yeah.
Because you're just adding an extra 5 yards that you have to go. But Bijan Robinson was unstoppable in this game.
Yes.
And
that is Bijan's play. Yeah.
I absolutely understand. And even if it didn't work, I would not be criticizing him for it because you put the ball in your best player's hand. You put the ball in the hands of the player who was the best player on the field in open space. And, you know, shout out. I have not seen enough people shouting out Matt Collins and Jonnu Smith for the blocks that they put down on in the backfield. Matt Collins especially. Like Matt Collins made a hell of a block. Jonnu did just enough to, you know, make the defender try to go around him on an outside angle. And that was just enough for Bijan to be able to make one of his famous cuts. And, you know, he converts that first down. And that was the same play that the Falcons called earlier in the game on 4th and inches, and it got a big Bijan Robinson gain. That's another reason why I like the play call. But man, that took some balls, man.
Yeah.
So definitely shout out to Arthur Smith.
Like, I love that picture. Like, oh my God. As soon as so he calls it, everyone's seen this. If you didn't see the game live, you might not have realized the context. So, like, this man straight face calls the 4th down, goes puts in the play call on it and puts his play sheet down and sits there for like a half a second. And he's just like, oh my God.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking when you see that? It's like, oh no, the coach is panicking. What the fuck did we just do? What just happened? We just lost the game. Like if he's panicking, like I'm gonna panic.
No, I was like, oh, he is all of us. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just called this. Like, this is insane. Like, this is insanity. And he was like,
insane. It is insane.
But he didn't call timeout. He didn't panic. I mean, he did like visibly panic, but like that was he calmly got the play in and then panicked, which is perfectly normal. It's like, oh God.
Going for it, I don't care what the analytics say. Going for it on 4th down is insane. There, like it's you
got to be a little.
This is not the same as that Saints game last year. This is not the same as 4th and inches from New Orleans territory last year because you were punting there.
Yeah.
Like you were punting. Like if this was a scenario at midfield where you go for it or you punt, you definitely go for it.
Yeah,
you were in field goal range. Like you were in Youngwood
and like
field goal range.
Very makeable for Koo at that point. This was a pure clock control move. Yeah.
And we got it. And I'm sure all of Atlanta collectively exhaled on that play.
Yeah.
So, and then the third person I do really want to give praise to for that fourth quarter is Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder did not look really great throughout those first 3 quarters. He had some nice plays, but he had 3 turnover-worthy throws. 3 throws that actually went right to Green Bay players. But then in that fourth quarter, like, we have talked about Desmond Ridder ad nauseum over the past few months. We've talked about his limitations. We've talked about what he does well. We've talked about his weaknesses. One thing I will never doubt when it comes to Desmond Ridder is his clutch gene, because I think he already in his young career has proven over and over again that he will, when it comes time for money time, when it's money time, he's going to make the play. It doesn't matter what he's done throughout the game. He will have a short memory. It started on that first career game in New Orleans, that Drake London fumble. What led to that was a 4th and 5 conversion to get into New Orleans field goal range to possibly tie/win the game. And, Drake London didn't let him do that because he did fumble. But that play, that was clutch. And Desmond Ridder throughout that entire fourth quarter, he had the it factor in this game. He was he made play after play after play. That fourth down, where he kept his own read and he scored that rushing touchdown. That play on 3rd and 3 to lead to that call on 4th and inches. The only reason why the Falcons even had that option was because, again, he held on to the zone read, and he made some really nice moves, dives for the pylon and gets close enough to make Arthur Smith consider it. He made some big plays. That
should have had that touchdown to Mac Hollins. I can't believe they took that off the board. That he deserves all the credit for that throw, and Mac Hollins does for that catch. But
he does, but that's one of those where it's like, I think you blame the rule more than anything, because it's like when you're like going backwards, like it counts your heel. You can't just toe tap because you're going back. But I don't know. I feel like that's one of those where they need to change the rule.
Yeah, I think so too.
But this was definitely one of those games where I definitely applaud Desmond Ridder for that fourth quarter. That deep pass to Mac Hollins. Sure, it was, a little shorter, and Mac Hollins did have to slow up, but he gave him a chance on that one. And that play set the entire tone for the fourth quarter. It was a beautiful flea flicker, and a great catch by Mac Hollins. Good job by Ridder to put it in a place where he can go get it. This is the second straight game where he has, had a successful deep throw in a key situation in the fourth quarter. First week to Kyle Pitts. And I mean, definitely big shout out to Desmond Ridder. I don't care what he did wrong in those first three quarters. He sort of vindicated himself in that fourth. And one thing I do want to see more of when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons moving forward, I love what I saw with those zone reads. I want that to be a key staple of this offense moving forward. I want that threat of the designed run from Desmond Ridder to be a thing that the defenses have to account for. We haven't really seen enough of it at this point. And I mean, Desmond Ridder ran the fastest 40 time in his draft class among quarterbacks. Now, granted, Malik Willis didn't run the 40 time, but I mean, Ridder runs. He runs a low 4.5 40. He runs it in the low 4. He is a fast guy. He's a quick dude. And I mean, I definitely, we saw them dial that play up over and over in this game, and it had positive results over and over again because the defense is so focused on Bijan Robinson, and I don't really blame them that, Ridder just holds on to the ball, and he has a lot of space moving forward. They even called a quarterback draw at one point.
Yeah.
He lined up in the empty shotgun.
Yeah, that 4th and 4 or whatever, right? The touchdown. I think that was a designed run. So
it was a designed run. I'm talking about the play earlier. It may have been on 3rd down, but where it was just an empty set shotgun. There was no running backs in the backfield. He took the snap, looked up for a second, immediately put his head down and went to the middle. And I mean, he got that first down.
Yeah.
And definitely, I do hope that we see a lot more of that moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And welcome in from parts unknown, Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson joining us. I appreciate Eric making the time. I know you've had a busy schedule, Eric. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How are you guys doing?
Good.
We're 2-0, Eric.
2-0, man.
Fantastic.
2-0, man. It's definitely a beautiful feeling. We'll see how far this goes, but this team has come out and they played hard in 2 games and they walked away with 2 victories, and we'll see what they do this Sunday on the road against Detroit in their first road test of the year. It's going to be a physical battle for sure.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't even talked about that game yet. We're still like waxing poetic about the Packers game. But...
I would definitely want to give some kudos to Arthur Smith for sure for just the gutsy play calling that he had. It's something that we haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of, and there's 3 different occurrences throughout the game where I felt he showed some fortitude by going forward. That as Adnan was talking about that flicker, that was down 12 on a 3rd and 3 on your end of the field. Again, you don't see that type of play calling in that particular circumstance, and for him to pull the trigger there, hats off to him on that. Going forward on 4th down on occasions with Bijan, and even going forward with Ritter, that Ritter ended up scoring his touchdown on that came on 4th down as well. So I got to give Arthur Smith some kudos, man. He dug down a little bit to try to get a victory, and it paid off. Him relying on his young talent on offense.
Yeah, you love to see it. You love to see it. It's been something that we've criticized him for, and you look back to that Saints game last year where we did have the mistake, of not going for it when they should have, and they punted it away. And you have to give the man props for I'm sure they took a look at a lot of their 4th down decisions last year and were like, hey, we need to become a team where we can be aggressive and we can get plus plays in these 4th down situations. And, honestly, the pick of Bijan Robinson and adding Bijan to this offense, I think, is that secret weapon that, you feel like you can get any short yardage play with Bijan Robinson, regardless of if there's backfield penetration, if there's a botched snap, if Bijan just has to make a miracle happen. He has a high chance of just making magic. If Bijan needs an inch, he's got a 95% chance of getting that inch. And that just gives you so much confidence in your offense and your ability to execute this, and allows you to be more aggressive with that stuff. So it's been nice to see that aggression so far. And obviously Eric, as one of the biggest Bijan truthers out there, how are you feeling about that pick so far?
We took a lot, Kevin. We took a lot on the chin with this pick, man. I'm feeling great so far. Bijan is showing the talent that I thought he would at this point. He's definitely elevated the offense as a whole. He's given him another playmaker out there on the field. He's given defenses plenty to think about when it comes to him just playing, him just, dressing up formations and things of that nature and being a decoy. It's enough to get the attention of an extra defender or two, and it's paid off for him in the long run. I think we're watching something special. We're on the verge of looking at one of the more electrifying players in the league, regardless of position, and I'm excited about it. And, Sunday, I know Detroit is going to be zeroing in on him, but we'll see what happens. I think this is a run game that Detroit has not seen yet so far this year, for sure.
Yeah, they really haven't seen any run game. The Chiefs' run game we know is just kind of lackluster, kind of has been for a while. And then they got to face sort of the Seahawks. They have had a good run game in the past, but Kenneth Walker,
too busy slicing them up in the air to
they didn't
really
even need to throw.
Like that. Yeah.
They did not really even need to. So,
but the Lions last year, I get it. The Lions did make some improvements on defense, but last year they were a bottom 5 run defense and a bottom 5 pass defense.
Yep.
They were really bad last year, but even those additions, they are missing some guys right now. CJ Gardner-Johnson may be down for the season. They're missing one of their best pass rushers in Houston.
Yep. And Josh Pascal, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Emmanuel Mosley's hurt as well on that defensive side of the ball. So
they are the walking wounded right now, and I think that's really made me sort of reevaluate this game. Yeah, going into it this season, I predicted a Lions win. In our game by, I was like, all right, there's no shame in losing in Detroit.
Yeah,
but they are coming here so banged up, and on the offensive side of the ball, David Montgomery's out. Campbell can say day to day all he wants. David Montgomery came out himself and said he'll need a few weeks. He's not playing this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown has
He's
a turf
hurt too. Yeah.
Taylor Decker as well.
Taylor Decker, Halapulavati Vaitai. Josh Reynolds was limited. I don't think he's going to be in danger of missing. But yeah, Kirby Joseph, the rookie, he DNP with a hip. They are banged up, and it sort of all happened at once, because going into week 2, this team was not really dealing with that many injuries. It's just sort of crazy. And we'll obviously see, I don't expect all of these guys to miss the game, all the DNPs, but we know David Montgomery's not going to play.
But the thing about Amon-Ra is I saw a lot of those orthopedic surgeons on Twitter, they're saying that it's a turf toe. I know Dan Campbell is not going to say that. He's not going to say those words. But they're saying that they were putting a metal, something metal in his foot or in his shoe, indicating that it was a turf toe injury. So even if he plays, I think he won't be anything more than a decoy.
They shouldn't play him if he has turf toe. I know Terry McLaurin came back from it pretty quick. But that was a month.
Back,
yeah.
Amon-Ra came back in the game, but I think he had one catch for 4 yards in that second half after he came back. It may be a mild injury, but it's definitely one of those where I don't think he's going to be close to it.
It's going to linger, and he's not going to be 100% for a while, even if he does play and practice sparingly.
Yeah,
it's going to affect him a little bit.
Yeah, there's no way around that. Before we get to this Lions game in seriousness, let me get to these couple of donations we had. First of all, Drew Elliott, the $5. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that. Says, are you guys concerned at all with Desmond Ridder's interceptions so far with the 3 turnover-worthy plays in the Packers game? Love the channel. Keep it up. Thank you, Drew. Yeah, if I had to make a complaint about Ridder, it would be that I just don't think he's reading the full field like he should be yet. He's played 6 games. So this is very much what you'd expect from a rookie quarterback, which is basically what he is at this point still. That it's going to take time to adjust to the NFL and adjust to these exotic coverage schemes, to these guys that are dropping, and just really seeing stuff that we sort of take for granted when we have guys like Matt Ryan out there, that their best trait is that they're just going to read the field and not throw those picks as often. So yes, I'm concerned in that that can cost this team games, and probably will at some point cost them games, but it's also not at all out of character for a rookie.
Honestly, if we're being honest.
Yeah,
But yeah, it
is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. You're 2-0. That's in the past, but yeah, Ridder going back, Ridder has had has had a lot of fortune with a lot of dropped interceptions, even dating back to the end of last season. So it's definitely something where you'll take those learning moments when you don't throw the interception, but that needs to be figured out. It genuinely needs to be figured out pretty quickly. You can't keep putting the ball in that position.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective when it comes to things, and you can look at it in that manner, or you can look at it, hey, it was a young kid who had those particular moments and he shook them off late in the game to make enough plays to get a win. And I'm going to give him credit for that. Those passes early, yes, they were ugly. They could have been detrimental to the team, especially the Jair one. That could have been a pick six.
Yeah.
But that he shook it off when it was fourth quarter came and they were down 12. He made the plays. He didn't have that. He's one of those quarterbacks, and it's kind of sort of what I saw in college as well. And I've stated this before. One of those quarterbacks where it's he's got to see his own blood in order for him to kind of sort of wake up a little bit. And he's always been that way. So he may have one of those moments where he takes a hit, or he has a pick, or he has a bad throw, and it's that bad throw happened, and watch, he's about to numerous times he's shaking that off and continue to play his game. And I think that's what we're going to see from him going forward.
Yeah, no, I think that there's very good points there. And again, not at all out of character for any rookie quarterback. You look at Bryce Young, he's throwing the ball up. This is a guy that was considered to be probably the most advanced passer in this class. He's put the ball in harm's way. He hasn't seen the field particularly well. And it's just, it takes time.
He can't throw the ball 10 yards now. for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
He doesn't have weapons that can get downfield. His offensive line can't protect him long enough to even throw it that far. Like it's ugly in Carolina. But I know
that's bad.
Yeah. It is.
They could do a whole pod on the disaster that's brewing in Carolina right now. But yeah. And then we got Noah C. What's up, Noah? With the $5 saying Arthur Big Ball Smith gave us that dub with that Ask Madden play calling this weekend. Hope we can get to 3-0 this week. Yeah, absolutely, Noah. Thank you for that, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, this injury report for Detroit is serious. Like, I mean, I don't even know what to say, because it's like 3 weeks in a row now we go into this game with the opponent missing major players. But like, I mean, nobody wants that.
I'm not complaining.
No, but like, obviously nobody wants that. But it's like, you can only play who's in front of you. You can only play the 11 guys you're lined up against. Mm-hmm. We can't make hypotheticals about this or that. So the Falcons, they're still underdogs in this game, so they shouldn't be sleeping or being like, oh, well, we got this now that these guys are hurt. And like, to be fair, it's Wednesday. We don't know how many of these DNPs are going to be practicing tomorrow or Friday or whatever. Like, I don't think all of these guys are going to miss the game, but it's just
that's bulletin board material, if you ask me. All these injuries that they're facing, and we're still underdogs. See, they don't the national perspective. They don't respect you.
Yeah.
So Arthur Smith can definitely turn this into something positive, at least in a message form for his team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
the other thing about the Lions is I don't think they've gotten off to the start that I thought they would. Like, the Chiefs game was fun. Like, it's always impressive to win in Kansas City. Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, let's be honest, like, that team was one Kadarius Toney drop away from losing that game. Mm-hmm. Like, and Toney had like multiple drops in that game.
About 6, yeah.
But the thing about it is, if that doesn't happen, and they did get a lot of good fortune their way, and I mean, in fair, the Falcons got a lot of good fortune against the Packers. There is no asterisk here. But if that doesn't happen, this team is sitting at 0-2 right now. Like, this team, like, that defense looked so bad against the Seattle Seahawks last week. Yeah. And I'm don't get me wrong, Geno Smith is a very fine quarterback, but I mean, he just looked like a straight all-pro against that Lions defense. 37 points. Their back is against the wall a little bit right now, because if they lose this game, they drop to 1-2, 0-2 in the NFC. And I mean, a lot of that good energy that they had over in Detroit, because they were just like us, up in Michigan. They were also talking about 10, 11 wins, winning the NFC North for the first time since 1991. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it'll be a bit of a reality check for them, a little bit of a wake-up call for them to now wake up and all of a sudden be 1-2 with home losses in the first 2 games. So, Detroit's definitely, they definitely sort of need this win a little more than the Falcons do, given their current positions.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a tough spot for them, because, look, like, it's not their fault that they have all these injuries. Like, this team, I think we all thought that this was going to be one of the tougher games on the schedule for Atlanta, especially this early in the season, when we were sort of expecting Atlanta's offense to kind of be finding their footing and the defense to still be gelling. And I mean, props to the defense. It seems like they've figured things out a little bit faster than I think we thought. And to where they're a top 10 defense after 2 weeks. Now, they haven't exactly played a murderer's row thus far, but Green Bay, I think, is a legit offense. They weren't at full strength, but still a legit offense with a really good coach. So now they face a real test this week against Detroit. If Amon-Ra doesn't play, then that's a huge blow. And they're down their starting running back, but nobody thought David Montgomery was this like all pro. So like that, so I don't know. Like, I sort of want to see it from Detroit. It's like, obviously you are banged up, and if you're down 2 starting offensive linemen and Amon-Ra and you're starting running back, and this that's going to make a big difference. But ultimately you still have to find ways to win. And it's getting harder and harder for them, because no CJ Gardner-Johnson, maybe no Kirby Joseph, seems very unlikely that Emmanuel Mosley is going to play. And now you're right back to 2022, where you were one of, if not the worst defense in the NFL. and it's the offense is playing catch up once again. And like much in the same way that that Falcons fans feel, like if this team starts playing poorly or they start getting whooped at home, the boos are going to come out. I mean, we saw this briefly for the Falcons. Like, I don't think it really started like raining boos or anything, but fans, especially in week 1, it was getting a little testy there when it looked like this was going to be a close game to Carolina. And thankfully that cleared up. But like, you know, the Lions have to be concerned because if this game starts really poorly, that crowd could get taken out of it. Because look, just like Falcons fans, they've seen this story before. They've had all this hype, they've had all this hope, and then they've had it ripped right out in front of them. And so they're in a very tenuous spot, and I certainly don't envy where they are going into this game.
And the thing about injuries, and as we, found out directly in 2018, among other years, is you sort of have to get over it. Like it's the NFL. Nobody is going to feel bad for you. Nobody is going to give you sympathy points. Like, people will say, oh, they were injured. But at the end of the day, the win-loss record is the most unbiased thing, like, in sports, because it's either you get the dub, you get the L, you move on. Like, there will be nothing in that record saying, oh, this team was hurt, this team was banged up. And, I mean, luckily, for the Falcons, they are getting they're getting healthy right now. Like Jeff Okudah had a full practice. Cordero Patterson isn't even listed on the injury report. He's a go. He's going to play. And Troy Anderson, I don't know if he's out of protocol yet, but he had a full practice today, which means he's
close.
If he's not
Mm-hmm.
out, then he's on the last step. So I mean, they're banged up. You take advantage of it. You go up there and you take the win. You go up there and you come back home, or you go up there and you get on that flight to London at 3-0, and you get on that flight to London with the entire media back home talking about, yeah, the Atlanta Falcons are pretty frisky. The Atlanta Falcons they're legit. Like, they are looking legit in the early goings as one of these strong NFC teams. And
Yeah.
you have to take that advantage now that it's there.
And I'm pretty sure the Lions had no regrets going into week 1 of playing a Chiefs team with no Travis Kelce and no Chris Jones.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty sure they were like, hey, you know what? It's here.
Let's get it.
Let's play our game. Let's get a win. So Falcons need to have that same approach.
Yeah. And this is, regardless, like, this is the best offense they're going to play for a while, more than likely. I mean, if Amon-Ra's out, then maybe you could argue that the Jacksonville offense is better. It hasn't been better through 2 games, but it's like these next 2 games are going to tell us a lot about this team, because as of right now, like, the Falcons are winning and you like what you've seen, but in some ways, like, we're trying to figure out, like, is this 2015 where this team is winning, but it's not convincing? It's like, this team is winning these games, but like, how good are they actually? Or is it like 2017 where it's like, oh, we know this team is good. Like, this team is actually, like, we're getting there. And like 2017, I bring it up again because history is repeating itself. 2017, Falcons win at home week 1. Week 2, Green Bay Packers come to Atlanta. Week 2, Falcons win. Week 3, Falcons go to Detroit and win. So what's going to happen this year? Are we going to repeat 2017? Because, like, look, I don't like how 2017 ended necessarily, but I mean, if we could, win I guess it would be 11 wins if we put it in a 17-game season. But if we could win 11 games and challenge the eventual Super Bowl winner in a playoff game, I think we'd all feel pretty good about that at the end of the day, if this was how this season went down. So, we still need to see, like, but again, we also knew, like, unlike 2017, like, this team is very much still, like, what we see this week may be just a glimpse of what this team looks like in December, because this is a team that, it's got a long way to go still and could get better in theory.
They're still trying to figure themselves out. Essentially, it's a young team. That 2017 was still veteran-laden, at least on the offensive side of the ball. It was still fairly young on defense. But this team here, they're talented, for sure. We can say that. And they're still trying to figure themselves out. But these are the type of games you stumble upon to figure yourself out against. And this, to me, I feel like I'm with Adnan on this. This is a prime opportunity to go up 3-0. and something that no one expected you to go. I don't care who's playing, who's not playing. You got a prime opportunity here on a road at that, a young team going on the road with this, facing in front of them. It's a golden opportunity. These are not the opportunities you want to look back on in December and say, man, if we would have snatched that one, we might have been in a playoff picture.
We've been in that situation too many times the past few years. How many times has it been December and we're talking about, man, if only the ball bounced this way in this one game, if only we made this decision, if only this catch was made, if only this was made. Like, let's look back and be like, man, thank God we won that game in Detroit. Like, thank God we took advantage of that opportunity. Well, we're already going to be talking about that with that Green Bay game. And, I mean, the Lions are still, even with the injuries, this is still a very talented football team. Like, this team wasn't the favorite to win the NFC North for no reason. Jared Goff, I think, this is a guy that people aren't really talking about as much. Because, Jared Goff is a bit of a boring name when it comes to quarterbacks. But he's definitely someone who has sort of revolutionized himself. He's sort of revitalized his career in Detroit, and now there's talk about him getting another extension with the Lions. And, I mean, I think last season was maybe the best year of his career when you take everything into consideration. I know he led the Rams to the Super Bowl, but that was more so of a game management type thing. But, I mean, I think if the Rams had this version of Goff back then, they would have won that Super Bowl. And, I mean, we know Jahmyr Gibbs is a very talented young running back, the second rookie off the board. He's no Bijan, but he's still a very good running back. I don't know how much they trust him with a big workload. I think we'll see
Not at
plenty
all,
of Craig
apparently.
Reynolds. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we'll see plenty of Craig Reynolds in this game for sure. Because they really don't want to be giving Gibbs those between the tackles type runs. This offensive line, if their O-linemen played, like, this may be the best offensive line the Falcons face all season. Like, this O-line is legit.
Yeah.
Like, Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in the NFL. Penei Sewell is one of the best tackles in the NFL. Taylor Decker is their tackle tandem is arguably the best tandem in the NFL, and Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell.
This offensive line unit is good enough to win 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, it's by themselves.
It's something you don't look at normal offensive line groupings and say that. But this grouping is good enough to win you a couple games. So this is definitely a test.
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be tough sledding in the pass rush this week if all those guys are healthy, because this O-line is better than Green Bay's, and we saw the fits that the Packers gave Atlanta's pass rush. Now, I don't know how scared I am of that Detroit run offense. I definitely wasn't scared of A.J. Dillon last week, and he played like shit, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But, this Detroit team, Amon-Ra is a huge piece. If he's not fully healthy, that's going to be big. But, I mean, Josh Reynolds he's been pretty good this year, but obviously he's not really.
If he has to be the top guy, that's not going to be as
you can
good.
sort of stick AJ Terrell on him and not really worry about it. And then, Marvin Jones is 100 years old over there, but he's still kicking. Khalif Raymond is a big play threat. But, I mean, this is definitely one of those games where if you you did ask me before the season, I said it would be a loss. I'm reevaluating that. Like, with these injuries, I've completely reevaluated that. And, I mean, I think I'm ready to pick a Falcons win, just given the circumstances right now. And maybe it won't be pretty. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's going to be a road win in the NFL. And it will, man, 3-0 is not a small feat in this league. No. How many times has this team been 3-0 like throughout its history? I know it happened in 2017.
Yeah.
And in 2015, the two scenarios you pointed out earlier, but 3-0, that gives you a tremendous advantage in this league, because all of a sudden you play 500 ball the rest of the way, you've won 10 games. And the rest of the schedule, I would argue is the type to where the Falcons will probably play a little better than 500 ball the rest of the schedule after this week 3 game.
Yeah. we'll see how many teams with winning records are even on the schedule, because I think this 2-game stretch of Detroit and even this 3-game stretch, because I think the Packers are probably better than people thought going into the season. So this 3-game stretch here might be the toughest 3-game stretch of the year. And so, even if they go 1-2 in this stretch, that's really not that bad. If it's your toughest 3-game stretch, they've already got a win. So if they can get 2 wins out of it, even better. And we'll see what happens this weekend, and then we'll have to see what it looks like going into London. That's going to be a really tough one. The Falcons typically play well in London. They have the last several years, so we'll see how that team comes out there. Obviously, playing the Jaguars in London is probably the toughest draw, because the Jaguars play in London the most of any team, and the London fan base is definitely on board with the Jaguars. But we know for a fact from people that watch our show, the Falcons have a big London fan base too, so I wouldn't expect it to be dominated by Jacksonville fans either. But yeah, let me get to before we sign off, because we're well over an hour here. There's just a lot of positivity for once, which is nice to see.
A lot of excitement.
Yeah.
I don't
probably
remember
go for another hour.
having this much excitement in my time at the Falcoholic, because this team is always shit.
Yeah, it's always starting off with losses, at least, where we're going into week 3. Like, okay, are we going to be eliminated from the playoffs this week, or are we going to keep this together? So, but yeah, George Costanza with the 2 donations. First of all, we didn't even mention the hashtag Jeff Okudah revenge game coming up.
Oh,
yeah. He thinks George thinks that Okudah's going to take one to the house and flex. If the Packers and the Eagles handle their business this week, we could be alone in first place for the first time in a long time. Eric, what are your thoughts on Jalen Carter over Bijan after seeing these 2 guys for the first 2 games?
Falcons made the right choice. Nothing's going to change my mind after what happened. Yeah, they're graded. They're graded as the top 2 rookies in the NFL by according to PFF. But Bijan's impact, man, is I'm going with the dynamic running back on offense, man. He puts fear and he's starting to put fear in opposing defenses. He's starting to make them aware at the very least. If there's no fear, you're plenty concerned about where 7 is on the field at all times.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
And I talked about vindication earlier on the show, just in the perspective of the fourth quarter of that Packers game. I want to give a shout out a little bit of vindication. Well, in the early returns, I know this is still, it's only been 2 games since the draft, but I don't know, doesn't it almost feel like we've been a little bit vindicated with Bijan Robinson? Because it was months and months of, I remember on this show, we talked about Bijan more than any other prospect. Like, show after show. I think there was a string of shows where it was just always Bijan Robinson. It was always, well, there is a chance that the Falcons are going to go BPA. They may do this, and, people were telling us, stop talking about a running back. The team isn't going to take a running back. The team shouldn't take a running back. And then, as we got closer to the draft, we started beating the drum for Bijan Robinson. We were very excited when the pick happened, despite the fact that a lot of people weren't, despite the fact that a lot of fans decided to become Eagles fans, which
they were Georgia fans, is what they were.
Just Georgia incredibly fans. Stupid, incredibly dumb. But it is what it is. Go be a fan however you want. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice when he comes out and he looks like the second coming of Barry Sanders, and it's like, like all of that praise, all of that hype. It sort of vindicates you a little bit, and you sort of feel really good about doing a little bit of a victory lap. And I know it's very early. It's 2 games in, but there's nothing to suggest to me that this guy will not be the best running back in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was, some stats that people were looking at where through his first 2 games, he's like second or third all time in yards from scrimmage in his first 2 games among like all players. He's up there with like LT and like LaDainian Tomlinson and some other guys for their first 2, including receiving and rushing. So he's up there with rare company over those first 2 games. And like Puka Nacua too, like shout out to Puka Nacua, who's also had just a great start. And, we got some fun rookies this year. But I think, by the end of the season, no one will be I think already people are like, maybe we were wrong to question Bijan Robinson in the top 10. You look around at teams and what they're getting from their draft picks, and like, maybe the Patriots with Christian Gonzalez, they look pretty happy with that pick, obviously, because Christian Gonzalez is playing great. Jalen Carter is the other one maybe that you point to. We're like, oh, that guy's playing great. Will Anderson, obviously, but again, like, he was maybe the best overall player in the class, and not really like you're comparing those two things. So aside from like that, I mean, I don't think anyone's really questioning like, oh, that was a bad pick. Like, because again, and this was our constant refrain before the draft, like, just draft good players. Like, avoiding busts and just getting good players on your football team, that's where the best value comes. Like, if you just don't miss, like, if you have a great player, maybe it's not a pass rusher or some, left tackle elite position, but you've got a great player in hand, just take the layup. Don't try to get too smart. Don't try to win the value game when you know what you have and what you can have. And even for the Falcons especially, it's like, just go get what you need. And what they needed was to get Bijan Robinson. And we've already seen the effect that he's having on this team. And it's massive. All right, this one's for you, Adnan, from George. Adnan, the Braves need to pull their heads out of their asses, okay? We're slumping to the finish line here. At least Spencer Strider looks like he's in postseason form, but everyone else back there in the bullpen looks like trash. World Series or bust, nothing less is acceptable.
George, don't worry about it. It's I know it's not ideal to go into the playoffs, on a little bit of a slump, but genuinely don't. Like, this team has more or less clinched that one seed in the National League. You will only have to watch Fried and Strider and one game of Charlie Morton in the NLDS. Like, Bryce Elder should not be pitching in the NLDS. I'm not worried about the Braves at all. Like, as long as everyone just stays healthy, I'm not worried. Like, if you're gonna slump, you might as well slump right now before the playoffs start versus slumping in the playoffs. Acuna's probably gonna get 40-70. We're good. The Braves train is on schedule. The Braves train is rolling right now, and you know what? We're taking it all the way to the World Series, and we're winning it all this year. Like, I'm all in on the Braves. We're getting another championship in Atlanta.
Yeah. It's the Braves train stopped at the station to get some repairs before making the long trek to the World Series. So, they had the option to do that, whereas some teams needed to keep going full steam ahead or they weren't going to even make it to the playoffs. So, it seems like these, like, from what I understand, don't worry too much about it. Like, this is not full strength. This is not like,
it's baseball. Like, it'll happen. Like, the only thing is, like, everything's in a microwave. You know, a crazy stat. I know it's a Falcon show, but the Braves haven't lost 5 games in a row since 2017.
That's wild.
Like, there's 160 games per season, and this team has not lost 5 games. The Falcons have had more 5-game losing streaks since 2017. And
there's only 16 games. Yeah.
They play a 10th of those games. Like, the Braves have my full trust because they have earned it.
Yeah.
Like, with other teams in Atlanta, like, you have to prove it to me. The Braves have proven it to me. You get the benefit of the doubt if you're Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves.
Yeah. All right, one last donation from This Is the Revolt. What's up, man? Thank you for the $5. He says, let's give some props to the rookie guard. Yes, Matthew Bergeron does deserve some props. He definitely got his welcome to the NFL this week. I think he actually held up really well in week 1. And then week 2, going up against a very deep, very talented Green Bay defensive front. I don't think he was as bad as PFF painted him, but he definitely struggled some, had some penalties, but still a good run blocker. I mean, I think we've seen everything we've wanted. Like, I think Matthew Bergeron has been better than expected. Absolutely no concerns from me. I think he's been playing well. I'm very happy with that pick. Shout out Syracuse. Yeah.
I mean, Bergeron's been fun. Like, he hasn't been like completely dominant, but he did struggle a little bit last game, but it's 2 games in for a rookie offensive lineman. It takes time to adjust to offensive line play. Like, that's one of those tougher positions to really adjust to from college to the NFL. And I mean, you've got to be satisfied with the early returns. And I mean, I want to give a shout out not only to Matthew Bergeron, but to the entire offensive line this past game. Because, they were buried after that Eagles game. Or not the Eagles game. They were buried after that Panthers game. And, they bounced back a little bit last game. Like, they gave up I don't know if they gave up a single sack. They gave up
6
one
pressures,
sack.
I think,
Yeah, like the QB hits weren't great, but they gave up just 1 sack. They gave up 2 tackles for a loss. They opened up a lot of running lanes for Bijan and company. The offensive line had a nice bounce back game against a very good Packers defense. And I mean, the team doesn't get 211 rushing yards without a very good inspired performance in run blocking from the O-line. So great job by the O-line, and we're going to need it again this weekend because, Aiden Hutchinson is, I think, the next great pass rusher in the NFC. Like, Aiden Hutchinson is a dog. And, one thing that is beneficial a little bit is because their other big-time pass rusher is out, you can sort of give more attention to Aiden Hutchinson on the right side. And you should. Like, I do not ever want to see Caleb McGarry one-on-one against Aiden Hutchinson. Give him help.
Yeah.
Give him
a tight end.
Yeah, give him a tight end. Give him an extra chip block. Like, double team Hutchinson throughout this game. Make him a non-factor in this one because I think Hutchinson is a game breaker, and I think Hutchinson is someone that can legitimately change this game by himself if you let him. So do everything in your power to not let him do that.
Yeah, and like, particularly with like James Houston's out, Josh Pascal's out. Those were their 2 other good edge rushers. They're both out. So like, even if it's like we're just gonna have Ritter roll left, like away from Hutchinson, then whatever you need to do. Like, if you should chip, you should skew the protection to that side, and have Ritter roll to his left if you need to, whatever. But don't let Hutchinson break this game because he will if you let him. He's that kind of guy. But with the injuries that Detroit sustained, now it's getting to the point where like it's really just Hutchinson that you have to game plan for. And when you get to that point, it gets a lot easier to neutralize him when you don't have to worry so much. Like, we're not worried about Jake Matthews going one-on-one against whoever their 4th edge rusher is. Like, I mean, I don't even know who that is, to be completely honest. No offense to Charles Harris, former Falcon Charles Harris.
Hey, Charles Harris.
So maybe the Charles Harris revenge game is here, but no offense to Charles Harris, but like we're not really worried about Charles Harris versus Jake Matthews. Like, Jake Matthews is going to handle his business. We are worried about Aiden Hutchinson versus Caleb McGarry. Like, that is a problem potentially. So whatever they need to do there, get it done, essentially. So
yeah, it could be the John Kaminsky revenge game too.
There you go. We got a lot of revenge storylines here in this one. Guys, thank you all so much for tuning in and hanging out with us. Before we get too far, let me bring you a quick word from our sponsor, betonline.ag. Guys, football is back, and BetOnline is your #1 information source for all your sports wagering info. With all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns, you can get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From Week 1 all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. If you're feeling spicy, this line is continuing to move towards the Falcons. So if you're trying to actually like do line bets, I would probably make them like sooner rather than later. Because if you wait to hear for sure until these Detroit guys are out, it's going to be like even tighter. So I don't typically do that type of stuff, but hey, if that's your calling, sooner rather than later, if you want to take advantage. No matter what you want to do though, guys, head to the website today, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to get in on the action. And remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Guys, please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please do leave that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Check out the community Discord server for the Falcoholic. Link is in the show description. And before we take off, want to, of course, thank Eric Robinson for stopping in. He's at @Eric_Robinson. Had to take off a bit early, and he was obviously calling in from parts unknown. So he was really trying to squeeze us in. So appreciate Eric for popping in. make sure to follow him there. He's ESPN Eric. He's too big time for us now. We only get 15 minutes of Eric now. That's how priority he is. But
it'll be less and less moving forward.
Yeah,
too.
he'll come in for like one take and then disappear. But guys, we're also joined, of course, by my co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to let the people know about?
Well, got my regular articles, series history. What if the Falcons win and lose? Also fantasy stud and dud. And I mean, yeah, I'm hoping you're not relying on any Falcons pass catchers because those guys are horribly inconsistent this year, as you would know if you're a Kyle Pitts fantasy owner. So, that's about the one sort of negative thing for the Falcons so far this year in a great couple of weeks that, the fantasy nerds are absolutely furious at Arthur Smith still to this day, and Arthur Smith does not care. He does not give a shit, and I cannot wait to see him give all those goal line reps to Cordero Patterson and just continue pissing fantasy people off.
Oh yeah. He's declared war on fantasy football, and from a neutral observer I have Drake London. I have Drake London in several leagues. I do maintain that Drake London's probably going to be the most consistent fantasy asset other than Bijan. I think Bijan might not get the touchdowns every week, but Bijan's going to get so many targets and so much volume that he's going to be like a 15 to 20 point weekly play, even if he doesn't get touchdowns. If he gets touchdowns, he's going to be a 30-point guy. So Bijan, Drake, probably your safe fantasy players. Kyle Pitts is going to be more of a weekly boom bust guy, but I think he'll have some big weeks. Otherwise, Tyler Algier, like a flex play, like if you need an emergency running back, I think he's got a good chance of every week of scoring a touchdown. But yeah, it's otherwise I would steer clear. Mac Hollins may be like a sneaky DFS guy, like if you're looking for that like extremely cheap guy to just throw in there as like a Hail Mary.
I mean, Younghoe Koo should be good.
Oh yeah.
Shout out
to Prize Picks. Younghoe Koo has brought home my Prize Picks every week. Like Younghoe Koo is the GOAT. So
he missed an extra point last game and he bounced back. He made some really big kicks in that fourth quarter. I think he was 3 for 3 on his kicks, 2 for 2 on field goals, including the game winner. And I mean, yeah, Younghoe Koo, he delivers. He always gets it done, and he's a very valuable asset in fantasy football as well, because this Falcons offense is absolutely churning right now. And you know what?
444 yards last week. It didn't feel like it, honestly, but now that that they actually piled up the yards, they just didn't necessarily score in the red zone as much. But I mean, they should have. I think this team should have scored 30 plus last week.
They're gonna keep churning out there in Detroit, because I do not think that the Lions will be able to keep up with this rushing. I don't know that there are very many defenses in the NFL that will be able to keep up with Atlanta's rushing attack. And yeah, no, Kevin, you didn't even make a pick for this game.
Oh, you're right. None of us did. Yeah. I mean, I'm picking the Falcons now with all these injuries. I mean, I think they're gonna get it done. I mean, honestly, people are gonna be talking about Amon-Ra, and obviously, I mean, that is a big one. But honestly, like Taylor Decker and Halapoulivaati Vaitai are maybe the most important two, other than Amon-Ra. Because
Taylor Decker for sure is
if those two are out, that's now 2/5 of this great offensive line that aren't playing, and that really changes things for them.
Yeah, it's I'm also going to go with the Falcons, and full disclosure, if the Lions were fully healthy, I would probably go with the Lions.
Yeah. I think we both did that in our season predictions. So
yeah, and but the circumstances change, and we talked about it earlier. This is an invaluable moment right now, an invaluable opportunity right now for you to, sort of win a game that you're maybe not even supposed to, looking at on paper leading into the season. And I mean, if you're 3-0, like, the vibes are going to be real. And people will absolutely take note of this team if they are 3-0. They're already taking note of it, But if you're 3-0, that will be monumental. Like, I can't even describe how massive it will be if you come out of Detroit with a win for your early season, for your early season outlook. And, then you're going into that London game sort of without much pressure. I mean, sure, it's the pressure of like staying undefeated and all of that, but you're going into that London game like, all right, like if I were to tell you leading into the season that this team's going to be 3-1 after those first 4 games, we would jump at it. We would be jumping for joy. And, you'd be going into London having already done all of the work for that. And you'll be able to play a very loose football game against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that is also sort of trying to figure themselves out a little bit.
Right.
They didn't look good at all against the Chiefs. Like, their offense looked like it was stuck in neutral in that game.
Yeah.
And, who knows? Maybe things break right a little bit. Maybe the Jags also look like they have some trouble. Maybe they don't figure it out, and maybe you even have an opportunity to steal one over there. And then if you think 3-0 is something, can you imagine if this team's 4-0? But that's
the hype train is leaving the station. Adnan's talking Super Bowl.
No, I'm not going that far. But the hype train will be leaving the station at that point.
Yeah, if they go 4-0, okay, you can leave the station. Adnan, you can talk Super Bowl if they start 4-0. I'll allow it. Just
4-0 with the rest of that schedule. Woohoo!
Yeah, they have. Going into Houston 4-0, it's like
just based on the schedule alone, like this team will be competing for like one of those upper echelon spots in the NFC if they're 4-0. Like these are the toughest teams on their schedule right now, and if you beat them, like already, like bring it on, like let's go, let's roll. We'll be full steam ahead at that point, but. That is a ways away. We'll be talking about that London game next week. But yeah, right now, let's go out there. Let's take advantage of these injuries, and let's walk out of Detroit with a victory the same way we walked out of Detroit with a victory at 3-0 in 2017. And I don't care how it gets done. I don't care if we win off another 10-second runoff. Like, give me that shit.
Yeah, whatever. I'll take it. I don't care how ugly it is. They don't have to win ugly. They just got to win. So. Ugly wins are better than pretty losses. So
that's for damn sure.
Yep. Yeah, guys. Well, again, we appreciate everyone for hanging out with us tonight. I will be back. We have another episode for you on Friday, our game preview show. I'll be joined by Mike Payton, formerly of Pride of Detroit. He's now with A to Z Sports Detroit, to preview this Lions game, get the inside scoop on Detroit from a Detroit expert. So look forward to that. And we'll be back, of course, on Sunday with our post-game coverage, hopefully celebrating another dub. Really looking forward to that. But, hey, this team's going to lose eventually. And I'm going to try not to be too upset about that because we're already 2-0. We got out to a good start. I think they got a great shot to get to 3. After that, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this game goes. But again, this is like a team that I think, in particular with my season predictions, I was saying like this team's probably going to be kind of hit or miss, especially early. But by the end of the season, you're hoping that they get hot and they go on a streak and they really come together. So that could still happen. Like this team could be spotty and be inconsistent and still, if they can just keep winning, even though they're inconsistent and then hit their stride late, they could just really take off because then they'll have the benefit of a better overall record, a higher seed, more home playoff games that could set them up because, and this is we didn't even mention it. Like this is a chance for Ritter to get his first away victory, 4-0 at home, 0-2 away. So can Desmond Ritter win on the road? That is the big question. So we'll have to see. I think he can. Like he should have won one of those games last year. Unfortunately, Drake London fumbles that we won't talk about got in the way of that a little bit. We saw London practicing with the ball security in training camp, so we'll hope that's paid off. And he went with no sleeves, so I think now that he's sleeveless, that should help. Because once guys go sleeveless, I think that their play just elevates. I mean, that's just a rule. So, yeah, guys, we really appreciate you all for hanging out with us. Like I said, subscribe, leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. We'll be back with more shows for you over the coming days. And then, of course, post-game coverage on Sunday as we get into week 3 here in the NFL 2023 Falcons. Can they start 3-0? Adnan and I say yes. I think Eric, we didn't ask Eric for his prediction, but I think he was leaning towards yes as well. So let's get it done. Let's get that dub. And we'll be back after that, guys. Yep.
Let's do it. Folks. Hey, the Lions may be wearing their blue ski masks, but the Falcons are going to be smashing and grabbing this weekend.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Let's do it. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time on the Falcoholic Live and Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Until then, folks, have a great night.